Welcome back to the 411 Non-Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Lovell, with me once again, Steve Cook, for a journey down memory lane as we are continuing our SummerSlam retro series here on the podcast. Next up on our list, after we looked at SummerSlam 2013, which featured Brock Lesnar versus CM Punk, Daniel Bryan versus John Cena. Well, next up we've got SummerSlam 1995, which featured Diesel versus King Mabel, Bret Hart versus Issac Yankem, and not to be forgotten, Steve, Barry Horowitz versus Skip.
Yeah, there was certainly a period of the WWE history. That's a good way to describe it, right? A period of WWE history. A period that I can tell you as a fan back in the day when I was 11 years old for this show. I was heading into middle school, and it was not a good time to be a wrestling fan heading to middle school. Because you know how kids are. They're looking for reasons to make fun of anybody. And with the product, most of the product that WWF was pumping out at this point was pretty easy to make fun of, as we'll see with some of the casting characters on this show.
This was an interesting experience, I will say that. We laughed when we decided to choose this one. We were like, all right, what are we going to put in the middle between the three we were going to do? Of course, we had 13, and now we're like, we're going to do 2000 next. But it's like, all right, we're just going to laugh about this. Let's just do 95 just for, the hell of it. And, well, as soon as I started watching this show, we get like a couple matches in, and I'm thinking, why? And we're like, why can we just keep this as a joke? Because this is something.
You know what, though? I mean, and it's kind of weird because I look back at the old observers, see what people were thinking. And if you look at the SummerSlam poll results, you're not going to get to guess this one, but the thumbs up got 188 votes. The thumbs down got 1 vote.
Wow.
In the middle, got 21. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, this was a highly praised show at the time. And I think as we dig into it, I will see where there were some things that were not bad, but
yeah,
also kind of illustrates some of the problems with the WWF product at that time.
Yes, and I will say that there were good things on the show, but I think it's when you go back and watch it, it's for us too. Like we're watching it 26 years later, and in hindsight, when you see how long some of these matches go, you just think, man, these are probably matches that could have been cut short by about 5 minutes on a lot of these. But still, as you said, you did get some good stuff near the top, and once again, it will probably involve two guys in particular that we've said a lot of good things about over the years, and could be in the running for Mr. SummerSlam, although Steve has already anointed Mr. SummerSlam, which we'll get to in I think it's our 7th match on the card. But it is SummerSlam 95, presented by Stridex, which was all over this show. Todd Pettengill was working this in everywhere. With
popular product for wrestling fans at the time, yes.
He was working in it everywhere. I'm trying to remember the video package he used it on something. Said someone was going to wipe out somebody, and I was just like, oh, Todd Pettengill, a true pro here. But this was at Pittsburgh, and Steve, you and I are recording this on the week that AEW is going to be all over Pittsburgh. So
that's right. Timely.
Yeah, very very timely. There at the Civic Arena, as we alluded to on our last podcast that we did, SummerSlam 2013, the attendance for this one, 18,062. So a pretty big crowd. And I think
stacked.
Well,
yes.
Look, and I think the crowd was like a very popping for some of the stuff that even I thought was like, how in the world could you do that? But like they were into it, so I'll give them that.
And Pittsburgh has a reputation for not being exactly one of your better wrestling crowds.
Yeah, they were into it, and yeah, that's one of the things that I have all over my notes here. It's just like they pop for a lot of the stuff that probably looking back you may think is just the dirt worst, but they were into it. So give them credit for that. But we start off with Todd Pettengill again. He's all over this thing at this era in WWE. Like he's everywhere at WWF, propping up everything, hyping up our big matches, and then we get Vince McMahon and Jerry Lawler welcoming us. And then, Steve, it is for his first appearance of the night, first of several.
Pittsburgh Zone.
Dean Douglas
Yes.
in his classroom, which if you just look, of course, he's backstage, and they've got his classroom made up, and he's going to be conducting summer school. What a brilliant idea that is.
Yeah, summer school, SummerSlam makes perfect sense. And wow, this is quite the turn for Dean Douglas, who had up to this point been in Extreme Championship Wrestling. After a tumultuous early career, kind of found his footing in ECW as the franchise Shane Douglas. And he gets that big contract with WWF, and Here he is. He was a trained, licensed to be a teacher, so it was a character that was not far from, it wasn't something weird for him, but it was a complete contrast to what he had been doing and what had been working in ECW. And well, he tried. I'll say he tried.
He did what he could here.
And he made the first. I believe he kept making reference to Mr. McMahon as well. So
Yes,
there's also that.
Well, he played the role of 411 Mania reviewer on the show as he was grading the matches, and he was doing that, and that was pretty much his role on the show, and we'll get to him as we go along. But
no star ratings, unfortunately.
No, he didn't have any star ratings.
We've yet to have a character. I don't recall a major promotion having a character give out star ratings yet. I think that might be. You think Bruce Pritchard would have put something like that in one of his shows as a rib on somebody? That'd be right up Bruce's alley to, kind of rib Dave Meltzer on the sly, if you know what I mean.
You'll have someone with a little billboard in the front row saying 6 stars in Japan or something like that. That's that'd be the go-to.
You know what? That's actually a good idea. They should actually do that.
Well, Steve just handed out free creative to anyone listening. So if you're a professional wrestling booker out there, there you go. Get someone that just sits around grading matches, and we'll see how it works and if it's any better than Dean Douglas here, who, again, a very prominent figure on this show. But we started... He tried. He did the best he could. We started the show off with, honestly, Steve, what I thought was probably one of the better things on the show. The 1-2-3 Kid versus Hakushi. And I did note here, though, that building up this match, just, when they come out and everything and they're really hyping up this match, one of the things that they replay is Barry Horowitz pinning Hakushi. And I was thinking, well, that's a hell of a way to build up a guy heading into a match, is getting pinned by Barry Horowitz. But that was not ideal. And at one point, Vince gets so excited in this match that he calls it SummerSlam. And I couldn't get over that. Vince he's just losing it. He's so excited. He's just like, SummerSlam. And Lawler's calling him out on it and all this other stuff. I thought this was a solid match. Like, again, these two guys worked hard. I know the Hakushi character was one where, look, it's WWE's handling of a foreign character, as we know. Not always the best track record with that. Lawler explaining the tattoos and all this other stuff. But I thought this was solid for both of these two. Looking at just how it played out. These are two guys that probably felt like they were a little ahead of their time at this point. And I thought they worked a pretty solid match here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the traditional way that we became accustomed to of, smaller guys opening a show at a quick pace and getting people excited and whatnot. And certainly two guys that would be 1-2-3 Kid and Hakushi. And unfortunately, although the match is good, don't get me wrong, it's good stuff. Unfortunately, both these guys kind of on the way down the card. We saw Hakushi losing to Barry Horowitz. Then he beats a 1-2-3 Kid. So I'm just sitting here like, okay, why am I supposed to care? And that's not a good thing. I know that these days we're taught that wins and losses don't matter. I'm just telling you. You're sitting here trying to tell me on a guy who just lost to Barry Horowitz earlier that morning. I don't know. It didn't really jibe. Although, again, good wrestling. It's just kind of tough for people to care.
Yeah, there's not much you can get into here, and it won't be the last we see of Hakushi on the evening. Based on some events we have coming up.
You also had, and there's also the fact that Hakushi was making the transition from a heel, and then 1-2-3 Kid would be making a transition from his babyface status. So they're both kind of switching sides. They're on their way of doing that. So neither guy's really as over as you would hope.
Yeah, you get a good match out of it, but there's not, like you said, not a whole lot to really sink your teeth into with this one, just based on, like you said, with the direction that these two are headed in. But I thought this was, one of the better matches on the show, just based on, just how these guys work together, and Vince McMahon, the commentary tropes, just throughout this whole show. He's just doing his 1-2. He got
Vince was Vince was his peak commentary events on the show. That's for sure. He was on one.
He was on it, and it's just like every time, you're getting the 2 count, 1-2, oh, it's over. He's got it. No, he didn't. No, he didn't get him. It's just like that. Just Vince went to that one a lot, and we saw that a lot in this match. But nice opener, Hakushi and 1-2-3 Kid. Hakushi getting the win here in this one to, I guess, avenge his loss to Barry Horowitz. Although, again, we'll have some more Hakushi coming up here in a minute. Then we get a promo backstage. Doc Hendricks, who is, you talk about another guy
Yes.
just on it. Like, he is jacked up with this. Like, he is jacked up for King Mabel. And Mabel cuts the promo here, calling Diesel a bunch of different names, Big Daddy Fool and all this other stuff, and hints at, having something in store for the main event. So,
Well, the royal surprises, and we have to note that King Mabel used the old phrase, "Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you," which is not quite how that goes.
I don't think that's right.
No, it's not. Fool me once, we're fooled. Fool me, you can't get fooled again. It's, very similar to that.
Well, the whole King Mabel thing, you talk about a pay-per-view. If
Man.
you think this, which again, once we get through it, I don't think this is probably as bad as maybe it looks on paper. But like King of the Ring '95, that one's as bad as it looks on paper, and then some. And that's not necessarily just because Mabel won. It's just that entire tournament was a mess. And remember, we're only basically 2 months removed from that here. So yeah, King Mabel has all the momentum at this point, and two other guys who probably don't have a lot of momentum, but. It's pretty wild to think of how quickly the character directions would change for these next two. Hunter Hearst Helmsley versus Bob Holly here. I mean, again, you think about this. This is 95. 5 years later, Helmsley's at the top of everything. Holly's the main guy in the hardcore division, all this other stuff. But, of course, they both changed, too, pretty quickly over the next couple years at that point. I'll tell you, Steve, I went into this match thinking, all right, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Triple H, Bob Holly, this could be good. But I just thought that this was kind of a mess. I mean, they delivered some stiff shots. I'll say that. It looked like, I don't know, Helmsley got pissed off at Holly or something earlier, because it's just, Holly hit him with a absolutely brutal elbow right to his face. Vince is making car jokes the whole way because, of course, right?
Yes.
This was okay, but again, I don't know what I expected from a 1995 match between Triple H and Bob Holly, but I just thought that this was sort of a little bit all over the place, and I will say these two kind of beat the shit out of each other because Holly did not back down from laying anything in here as he did pretty much his entire career.
Well, that's one of the things we talked about, how 1995 was a strange time period for WWE. And you have two solid wrestlers here. I believe this is Triple H's very first pay-per-view appearance for WWF. If not, I think this was the first one. So, good way to debut there on pay-per-view. You got the aristocrat going against a race car driver. That's one of the main problems here. Although, I mean, on paper, you think that's two different characters there, two very different styles going on there. But another thing that kind of stands out to me, it stands out in the future as well. Bob Holly was never really the best guy at putting people over. Like he wasn't that guy. Like he was always gonna give you a fight. I mean, getting him to do a job was like pulling teeth, let's be honest. The guy he was not Barry Horowitz or the Brooklyn Brawler or one of those guys that goes out of the way and make their opponent look good. Bob Holly, that was never his game. And it wasn't his game here either. As you notice, when Triple H hits the pedigree at the end, one of the more awkward looking pedigrees of all time, Holly, he didn't look like he wanted to do it.
No, he wasn't giving him a whole lot on that one.
He probably saw Triple H use that move on a couple of jobbers like, whoa, like the one where the guy got spiked on his head. Yeah, he probably saw it. He's like, whoa, wait a minute.
I got a race car to drive. I can't be flattening my face here on the map.
No, so. I'm taking it as shitty as possible. So yeah, just not. Triple H got a win, which is nice, but it didn't do a whole lot for him.
No, this was again, like we said, it's hindsight, and you're looking back at this thinking, okay, well maybe this could be good based on what we saw after this, but I just thought this was kind of there, and I didn't think the chemistry was necessarily there between these two at this point in their careers. I assume they probably work together a bit down the road.
I'm thinking now that Triple H and Hardcore Holly I don't think they would have had too many interactions actually. I mean, Triple H was usually on the tippy top, and Bob was usually working further down the card, entertaining stuff, but he usually was not in that main event scene. There might have been a reason for that.
Maybe I'm gonna have to look.
You remember that SummerSlam match?
Yeah, you remember that? Hang on, you remember that?
Yeah, we ain't working that guy again.
No, there is early in the match. If you go back and watch this, which I think you can go back and watch. Just pick your spots based on what we talk about. But there is a point early on where Holly I don't remember what the setup is, but I mean he just hits an elbow that just absolutely clocks Triple H right in the face, and I had to note that. I was like, boy, that was brutal. So yeah, that was your hardcore Holly. Wasn't gonna hold anything back on this, and he didn't hear, but it was Triple H.
And one more thing I will add: the Hunter Hearst Helmsley character, not that bad.
No, it wasn't
Not that
terrible.
bad. I think you got a lot of crap for it later on. I mean, because in comparison to the Triple H we know of today and the DX and all that stuff is a 180 from all that. But at the same time, it was a pretty solid character, and I thought he did a good job with it.
Compared to some of the other characters we're going to talk about on the show, I didn't think it was bad at all. In comparison, I thought it was actually not bad. So then we go, Steve, to our favorite thing here, the tug of war contest between the WWF Superstars and the Pittsburgh Firefighters. It was the WWF getting the win here. I don't know if you recall that, but their strength in the end was too much.
Yeah, it was similar to how the WWF came on top over the WBF in that famous tug of war.
Yes.
And other famous tug of wars they held over the years with the Pittsburgh Fire Department.
You think that was a shoot tug of war? Or you think it was a work?
Yes.
Yes, that's all you need to know. Oh my, the tug of war contest. I remember those. Like I remember some. I don't remember this one, but I remember them doing some of those.
They did some here and there. But I don't really remember this one too much. I'm sure it's sold out though.
Yeah, I want to say 93 to 95 was prime WWF tug of war era.
Lots of tug of wars going on in that time period.
Yeah.
And they all sold out. They were hanging from the rafters.
They were everywhere. So there's another highlight: the tug of war contest. I don't know if that got a star rating anywhere, but if we had a character that gave out, if Dean Douglas gave out star ratings, he could have rated that one. But this next one, I don't think got too many high star ratings either. The Blue Brothers with Uncle Zebekiah, which of course Zeb Coulter. The Smoking Guns. How about this? The Smoking Guns and the Blue Brothers, which we know, like these two would go on to be pretty regular teams here when you think about it. Of course, the Blue Brothers are the Harris brothers, who went on to, I mean, I think, have a match and have gimmick in literally every promotion in the world. But this was another one. Like, here's the theme thus far. Like, Hakushi and the 1-2-3 Kid went like 9.5 minutes. Triple H and Bob Holly went about, I think, 7 or 8 minutes. This one goes about 6, and I thought that was okay, because I will say this. This match was pretty much just, it's your usual tag team match where the heels work over one guy in particular, where Billy's getting worked over, eventually makes the hot tag to Bart, and that leads to the Guns getting the win, like I said, about 6 minutes. But the crowd loved them some Guns here. Like, they popped when they got the win. So this was another one of those matches just kind of there, but the crowd, once you got the good guys winning, they were all for it. So
yeah, it served its purpose. One interesting thing, watching the show here on Peacock, is kind of, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but the Smoking Guns entrance, I don't know if you know, it's all chopped up. Like they walk out, and all of a sudden they're in the ring, and the music's playing. It's not matching anything. And I can only assume it's because the Smoking Guns, Billy and Bart, used to come out with guns that fired blanks. They'd fire the blanks off, and people would pop and whatnot. So obviously Peacock not big on the gunplay.
Wow.
Even if it's blanks, they're not going for it. So there you have it. So if you're watching Smoking Gun matches on the Peacock, there'll probably be more instances like that, I would say, unless they just did on this show and forgot the other ones. But
we may have to report
something
that
interesting
one.
There.
That's say we need to put a story on that. Like that's I didn't even think about that, but you're right. Like I bet that was it.
Yep. That's an exclusive. That's an exclusive. You can credit me with that one, Dave.
That's an exclusive story. We're gonna write that up. Credit Steve Cook on the 411 on Wrestling podcast. So
the match was there. It was okay. Smoking Guns were a perfectly fine tag team, and the Blue Brothers was one of the better Ron and Don Harris gimmicks, I thought, because it's another one of those gimmicks that's not too far from home.
The first thing I always think about when I think of the Blue Brothers is that they were in the 1995 Royal Rumble, and I remember thinking, why are they in the Rumble? Because I just like that to me as always goes back as like one of those weakest Royal Rumble.
That was everybody on the roster.
I was gonna say, like, I think that's still probably the weakest Royal Rumble of all time, just in terms of the roster. It was just, and that's the first thing I think of. I'm like, the Blue Brothers. Oh yeah, I remember both of them were in the Royal Rumble, and I was like, I don't think they're winning this.
I thought you were going to say you're expecting the Blues Brothers to come out. Well, and then you're disappointed when John Goodman and Dan Aykroyd didn't come out there.
Well, I mean, hey, did they eventually do that? I don't know. WWE surely brought them in at some point.
I don't think there was that interaction with the Blue Brothers and the Blues Brothers, but it was sold out. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah, this was a match. The Smoking Guns get the win. Pittsburgh loved it, so give them credit. They enjoyed that. So, oh boy. Surprisingly, like they enjoyed this too. What's about to come up, even though I did not. I will tell you straight up. We get a good video package. Todd Pettengill again narrating the video package of Barry Horowitz's losing streak coming to an end as he got the better of Skip on multiple occasions. So we get the rematch here with Skip with Sonny taking on Barry Horowitz in a match that could main event anywhere in the world. One of the things I put right here, Barry Horowitz's entrance music, it was something, and so was his gear. Like this guy, I don't know. Like I don't know. I guess there's a reason why he had a losing streak because his entrance music, his gear, like this was sort of that like create a wrestler on a video game type thing where it's just take the most generic stuff you can find and.
Well, the entrance music itself was, and fortunately, it's got listed in the Observer's. I was wondering what the name was called. Hava Nagala.
Okay, so he actually
said that
used.
wrong. It is a Jewish dancing song they came out to, which I don't know. That's a little too on the nose for me, but whatever. I mean, had the Jewish guy come out to Hava Nagala. I don't know.
See, maybe I was just like, I see now that I think of it, I'm like, okay, it sounded like the actual song, but I thought they were doing like a knockoff of it. Is the way it sounded.
I'm sure it was
to
a
me.
knockoff.
Yeah, that's what. So I don't know, but anyway, you slice it. This
suspenders. I don't have a good explanation for suspenders. Didn't really tell you about that one.
And they were like sparkly, weren't they? Like they had like
yes, they were very sparkly.
Sparkles going to him. So
he just got off from his job at Chippendales earlier in the day, working the day shift on a Sunday. You know, gotta do what you gotta do.
Listen, the crowd's chanting Barry throughout this match. Like they're all for this guy. So give them credit.
I mean, that's the thing. And Barry Horowitz was one of those. We've talked before. I don't know if I talked about it with you. We've talked before with other folks about how one of the things that's missing today, although maybe you see a lot of it on AEW Dark these days, you don't have your well-known jobbers anymore. Although it's kind of,
is that the NXT roster now, or
it kind of leads into a point I'm gonna make with this match as well. Is that the whole Barry Horowitz push. It was fun. I liked it because I was familiar with seeing Horowitz on TV all the time. I thought it was fun that he got a little win and got a little shine there for a few minutes, and he didn't get a huge push or anything, but he got a nice little push. He even won a few matches later on, so it was fun. But it's one of those things that kind of has its limits. Like you're not gonna make a character like Barry Horowitz a world champion or an Intercontinental champion or anything like that. And the thing that stands out to me now is that. A bay face that's, happy to be there, lucky to get a win. It feels like most WWE bay faces are pushed that way now.
Yeah.
I mean, Nikki Ash being the most obvious example right now. Like, she's basically pushed like the female version of Barry Horowitz.
Yeah.
And she's happy to be there. She's lucky she can beat Charlotte Flair. I mean, it's nice. It's a fun character, but, Barry Horowitz didn't win the world title. And Nikki Ash is, let's be honest, that title run of hers isn't looking too great right now. So, I mean, I don't know.
The thing, too, that stood out to me is, like, you just see Chris Candido in this Skip gimmick, and I just think back, I'm like, we know what this guy was capable of, and it's just like this whole Skip stuff. But Sonny, I mean, look, Sonny, it was a little bit different at this era in 95 for Sonny.
Sonny, yes.
There's another one, hindsight.
I think I know where you're getting on that.
It's if only you knew what was to come, I guess, in that scenario. But this was sort of that point where you're just like the characters, like we talked about, like it's just all these different characters. Like at this point in '95, or really as we know, I mean, this was the new generation, all these different characters where they had through '94, '95, until they eventually make the switch. Which, by the way, this is the last pay-per-view before they actually start the the Monday Night Wars officially begin, because Nitro doesn't come along doesn't come in long after this. Like it's pretty soon after this, so this is the last pay-per-view of the actual WWE solo before the Monday Night Wars. So we know a lot of things change, but I look at all these characters and I'm just thinking, man, what a different time it was at this point. And speaking of time, this match goes almost 12 minutes. And I told you before we started recording, like I thought it was 20 plus. I mean, again, I will give Pittsburgh credit. Like they ate this up. Like they were into it at the end. They love Barry Horowitz. So give them that.
So yeah, and I thought it was a fine. I think I liked the match better than you did because
Probably.
I remember the Horowitz stuff from TV, and I remembered him as the jobber from back in the day, so I got a good feeling out of that. And the skip gimmick was god awful, but Candido still had his work. It's still Chris Candido out there wrestling.
Right.
So you put him out there, and Horowitz it was good at selling for him, like he's good for selling for everybody. So it was a good combination in there, and the finish is kind of goofy with Hakushi coming down. So they had even the score from earlier that day where Skip cost Hakushi to win. So it's kind of weird, but again, I thought it's kind of cool where he jumps over both guys in order so he doesn't cause disqualification, and he manages to distract Skip, and then Horowitz rolls him up for a win. I thought it was clever.
It was a unique finish. Like, I don't know that I've seen one like that before.
Yeah, he was smart enough not to get the guy disqualified, so he just does enough to create the distraction, and a different kind of distraction too, not like the music playing or what we see these days. But so I thought it was perfectly fine stuff. The crowd loved it, and I felt a little nostalgic, and I've liked it better than you, but much like you, Dean Douglas was not impressed. Dean Douglas did not like that at all.
Me and Dean were on the same wavelength here. I mean, look, I thought Sunny was fine at this point too. Like, I thought
Sunny was fine. That's right. Yes.
Well, Sunny was fine in her role as well at this point. I thought she played up her role nicely in this type of match. So I didn't hate it. I just thought it was long. That's all. Dean Douglas agreed with me. He was not a fan, and then he went to his word of the day, Steve, which was vivify.
Yes,
vivify was his word, and we saw highlights of the match on the old school TVs at that point. He gives it an F grade, so he doesn't do the star rating. I assume that'd be a dud, but he gives it an F. And
see, what was the Meltzer rating here? The Meltzer rating was he gave it 3 stars.
Wow, really?
So, yeah,
that surprises me.
And I'm in that similar boat. So
Maybe.
I don't know. We can disagree on things around here.
No,
okay.
I'm surprised by that.
I like Barry Horowitz and Sunny more than you do. It's all right.
Well, hey, I give credit where it's due. So I tried to give some. I thought the finish was unique. I just thought at 12 minutes it was a little long.
Well, I mean, we'll be getting to some other long stuff later on too.
Yes, we will. So Dean Douglas, F across the board here for that match. So
keeps talking about Mr. McMahon too.
Yes, he's just Mr. McMahon. He's just Mr. McMahon, Mr. McMahon, Mr. McMahon. Todd Pettengill with Shawn Michaels. And this was 1995 Shawn Michaels right here. As he pretty much says that he has everything to lose, nothing to gain from his match with Ramon, which we're going to talk about coming up, the ladder match. And this was just sort of your traditional Shawn Michaels promo at this point, which led us into our women's championship match, which Bertha Faye with Harvey. We already know Steve's thoughts on this one. Bertha Faye with Harvey Whippleman versus Alundra Blayze. This is for the WWF Women's title. And as if you had any doubt at this era, early on we get lots of weight jokes from Vince and Lawler. No surprise, given that duo. That's no surprise. We talk about how times have changed, right? Like, it's just things have changed so much in terms of what you probably look at in a women's match in the WWF, WWE. I thought they worked hard, but I don't know that it was completely there. It was a WWF women's match in 1995, and this was one where, I think this went 4 minutes, something like that. It wasn't very long, so maybe I gave it a little bump for that. But it was actually Bertha Faye getting the win, winning the title. I thought the finish, I don't remember anything about this. I really don't remember a lot about this show in general, but when I watched it, I'm thinking, was that what happened there? Because Alundra Blayze, she kicks out at 3, and I'm thinking, was that a screw up or was that a title? But it sort of leaves you with a deflated feeling of, did she wins, but Alundra kicks out, it felt like she kicked out before 3, but the referee continues counting, and it's just I don't know. So the finish was...
There's a bad power bomb too. I mean, she tried a sit out power bomb that didn't really didn't go too well, and Alundra kicks out, and it wasn't very good, and the match wasn't very good. And Bertha Faye, I'll tell you what, the woman in Japan, the Monster Rippa Ronda Singh, she was a badass, and people could buy a badass against Alundra Blayze like they did with Bull Nakano, and Ron Sink could have done the same thing, but instead we had Bertha Faye playing the character that our friend Dewdrop is currently playing in WWE. And unfortunately, she's got Harvey Whippleman with her instead of Eva Marie, so it's not even that good.
Like, this was Vince's thing, though, right? At this time, I mean, like, he's still. I mean, look, right? Like, look who's on top. Like, it's the monsters. Like, it's
You
Diesel.
got to tell jokes.
You know, Vince is telling jokes.
Jokes.
He's got Diesel, Mabel. The monsters are on top. Yeah. Like Bertha Faye. Like, it's just.
Well, we're heading back there, aren't we?
Yeah. Right.
Well, maybe this might be good news for Dewdrop here in a few weeks. Maybe she'll beat Nikki ASH for the title. I don't know.
Yeah, Vince.
Another thing I'm not sure about is Jim Ross coming down after the match to interview Bertha Faye, and I guess he touched Bertha, and Harvey was outraged by that. And I couldn't help but notice that JR had an interesting suit going on here. He had the black suit, of course. He's got like this multicolored vest underneath. He's got the multicolored bow tie. And I kind of noticed that the vest and bow tie kind of matched Bertha Faye's outfit. So I'm not sure if there's something going on there or not. I don't know. Maybe Harvey was right to be suspicious. I don't know.
Steve Cook, once again, getting to the bottom of the story.
Somebody's got that. Next time JR does one of his Ask JR Anything podcast, you guys can ask him.
And look, what are we? We're probably, this was August. I mean, we're 4 months away from Medusa leaving to go to WCW. So, I mean,
yeah, she was on her way out anyway.
She, I think she actually won.
Unfortunately, they made the mistake of giving her the title back.
Right, I was gonna say she won it back not long after this, so they actually probably,
they probably should have rethought that one. Yeah.
In hindsight, that's another one where if you had that decision back, you would probably take it based on what actually happened. So. Yes, I was joking earlier. I'm not saying I love this match by any means, but I'm gonna keep hating on Skip and Barry Horowitz. But this was, it wasn't great. So now we get the video package for the Undertaker's feud with Kama, and I think actually Pettengill may have got in a Stridex line here. Which how you do that heading into a casket match, I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure he made it work.
That's about seriously, a pretty heavy deal here with the Kama. Melting down the urn into a necklace, which good, very, very good piece of business there. But 95 was not one of Undertaker's banner years. Let's be honest. Facing various miscreants managed by Ted DiBiase on all these shows, and just.
Well, I mean, after this, he goes into Mabel, right? Like, isn't that I want to say that was. Probably...
Then Mabel crushes his face with a leg drop. Yeah, so that was the thing that happened too. But not to. But I'm sure you liked working Kama here. I know the Undertaker and Kama are good friends in real life and whatnot. And they both kind of had their working boots on, and they tried some stuff. I do think as one of those matches, it went a little too long.
Yeah,
it's like they tried to do too much. Quite honestly, I mean, you even had Paul Bearer out there knocking down a referee, which I was amazed by that. Like, what? Paul Bearer doing something physical is not something I expected to see. But sure enough, we saw that, and. Eventually Undertaker wins because, for God's sakes, it's Undertaker and Kama in a casket match. What do you expect?
Yeah, this one went almost 17 minutes, and that
there's no reason for those guys to go 17 minutes.
Not at all. Just remember, in hindsight or in comparison, this goes double the main events that we'll get to.
It's tough to time things on a show like this too, because there are a couple matches that could use some time, and then there are a lot of matches that you don't want to give any time to.
Yeah, this was another one. Like, it just felt long, and as I said, it's probably watching now, feeling like the pacing at times is much better, obviously, than it used to be in some of these scenarios. And I think you just look back at some of these matches 25 plus years later, and you're thinking, wow, if that went 17 minutes today, I can only imagine what the crowd would be doing. But Pittsburgh,
they could have gone longer with the tug of war, I think.
Kayfabe was in full effect here. Pittsburgh loved it. So they were fine with it. And as you said, as if there was going to be any doubt, it was the Undertaker getting the win. I did like the...
I didn't notice. Did they get the necklace back? I did not notice whether Paul Bearer was able to obtain the necklace or not, because I know eventually they got an urn back eventually, obviously.
Well, Paul Bearer, like you said, he had his working boots on here. He's going after referees, and he was there to work that night in Pittsburgh. But I did think the old the coffin cam that was interesting.
That was good. I like the coffin cam. Some good technology there from WWF. The old coffin cam.
And I like the Kama character. Like, again, if you look at this in like '95, like you're thinking this year itself, and you're just like there's just not a lot. But like I could dig the Kama character. Like, I thought it was just one of those sort of simple, straightforward, badass type characters that I don't know that they did him a whole lot of favors from a booking standpoint, but I was fine with Kama. Maybe it wasn't the Godfather, but I was okay with Kama or Papa Shango. I don't know. I don't know how you'd rank those, but
yeah, it's tough to rank the characters of Charles Wright because, especially Papa Shango is one of those characters that's really cool on paper, but then in execution it doesn't go so well, honestly.
Yeah, right.
And today, if you go back and watch that stuff, oh boy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Unfortunately, Godfather was a great character too, but that's another one that wouldn't go well today.
Yeah.
Papa Shango actually probably would. Papa Shango would be right up their alley today. Actually, WWE would be all about some Papa Shango.
I was gonna say, I think actually like Kama or Papa Shango, like one of those two would do really well today, and
Yeah.
I think
May Alexis gonna set somebody's feet on fire next week. We'll see.
if they what if they just? I think that would immediately help this whole deal. It's just bring back Papa Shango and pair him with Alexa Bliss.
Maybe that's what Elias is doing. Maybe Elias could be the next Papa Shango.
Wow. Once
How
again,
about that?
handing out creative gold here on 411 on Wrestling Podcast. Speaking of creative gold, Issac Yankem.
Oh,
He was in our next match against Mr. SummerSlam, who Steve was anointed,
Yes.
and I agree with him. Bret Hart versus Issac Yankem. And once again, you want to talk about characters, right? Like, it's all about the characters here, where you've got Issac Yankem, who is this dentist, this evil dentist, going up against Bret Hart, who is a professional wrestler, right? So it's so different, and it's so, what a time this was.
couple things. I noticed when Bret Carmay came out here, he did not have his jacket. And I was trying to remember, was this I know it's close. Had Jean-Pierre Lafitte already stolen Bret's jacket by this point?
I know this was kind of in that range, but
Because Bret, speaking of another guy who had a great 1995, poor Bret, he was given a lot of interesting things to do in 1995. I mean, between Issac Yankem and the Jerry Lawler stuff,
Kiss
and
My Feet matches,
the Kiss My Feet matches, and Jean-Pierre Lafitte, and Kissing Feet and Jean-Pierre Lafitte, just not Bret's best year, but he tried. He tried all he could here as well, but Issac Yankem, man, I'll tell you, we know who Issac Yankem becomes later on. Becomes a Big Red Machine Kane, and eventually becomes one of WWE's top guys. But he wasn't ready in 1995, folks. I mean, he wasn't quite there yet. You could see he had kind of a physical presence. You could see where he could get there someday. He was not there at this point, so that made this a very rough watch. Bret was trying as hard as he could to get something out of this guy. It just wasn't happening. And the other thing I will point out is that, given that this took place in Pittsburgh, I have to wonder if a young Dr. Britt Baker showed up here at the Civic Arena, saw this match between Bret Hart and Issac Yankem, and thought to herself, you know what? I want to do both these things.
maybe she did. She would have been 4 years old in '95. So
She thought she saw Issac Yankem, the wrestling dentist, and she thought, that could be good. That could be something.
you need to get to the bottom of that one. I think that's another story that hasn't been broken yet.
Well, Britt Baker's doing a ton of interviews in the Pittsburgh market. I
She
know
is.
that. So if you Pittsburgh media folks are listening,
Yes.
good. There's a little something for you. Ask her about Issac Yankem.
21 interviews in 2 days, according to Britt Baker on her Twitter account. So, maybe.
It's one of them with Mark Madden, because Mark Madden would probably ask something like that.
I assume Mark Madden's got some of those interviews. I would think. But I would have loved to hear Mark Madden call.
If he does, I feel sorry for the girl, because
Well,
oh god.
I think it would be interesting to hear Mark Madden call this match with Issac Yankem and Bret Hart. This was, I mean, we talk about time, right? Like, this one also goes like close to 17 minutes, and it ends in a disqualification, which that right there.
That's right. Brett can't get the win clean over Issac Yankem. We have to save this guy.
Well,
Yankem
some
can't
things
take a
change,
loss.
some things don't change. There's one of them. Yeah, this was like, I thought it was fine. Don't get me wrong. Like, I thought this was probably one of the better things on the show. I'm not, I don't want to say that again in comparison to the others. It was good, but I think a lot of that has to do with Bret Hart, right? Because like you said,
Yeah, it was Bret Hart.
He
tried.
Glenn Jacobs was not there yet at this point, and certainly when you're saddled with an evil dentist gimmick, there's only so much you can do here.
We
But
had Jerry Lawler out there to lend a hand, if you will, some interference and whatnot. And they do the gimmick where they do the hangman gimmick on the ropes, and that ends up in disqualification. And you had all the officials running down to break things up. And meanwhile, the Pittsburgh fans were cheering for the Steelers.
well, and the thing is, I don't even know if this would be the worst gimmick Kane would ever have. So, since he was the fake
So,
Diesel,
oh,
I mean, I would argue that's worse than
I
this.
thought you were
So,
going to say something about the Christmas creature.
well, listen, that's I heard that did well. So, um,
The fake Diesel, yeah, that's another one. So I don't know, but as we found out later, somebody could make the wrestling dentist thing work.
yes, they could. So, props to Britt Baker for doing that. But that, solid match. But again, if you're going to spend 17 minutes watching it to a DQ, probably not my cup of tea. Which led us into, I think, what was, certainly easily the best thing on this show by far. That was the ladder match for the Intercontinental Championship. Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon. Of course, they had the ladder match at WrestleMania 10, and we build it up again to this match here. And I mean, look, this was excellent. I know a lot of people always try to just compare the two matches, but I think just in and of itself, if you're just looking at this match, we talk about it such a contrast of everything else you see on this show. Like, this was that contrast where it's like it feels like a different company when you watch this match right here. You watch everything else, it's completely different. And so, and maybe it was a good thing that they held this to this point in the show, because it's like, if you look at everything before and then what's about to come after it, I mean, there's just no comparison between this and everything else.
Well, and as you'll recall, heading into SummerSlam, the originally scheduled Intercontinental title match was between Shawn Michaels and Psycho Sid.
Right.
And, this is the time when Gorilla Monsoon became the interim president, replacing the infamous Jack Tunney. Oh, our good friend Jack on the take Tunney. He finally steps down, and Gorilla Monsoon steps in the role. And one of the first things he does is he takes a look at the SummerSlam card, and he's like, Jesus Christ.
What is this?
Yeah, I got to put something good on this, is what he says. I'm gonna have so nobody wants to see Shawn Michaels versus Sid, which is true. So he puts Razor Ramon in the slot and makes it a ladder match because people want to see that. And the fans are like, yes, we want to see that. Sure enough, it kind of worked. It's a pretty good match. And you know what? I'm going to give Razor some credit too, because a lot of people want to say that the Shawn Michaels matches with Razor Ramon was Shawn Michaels having a good match with a ladder. Razor did his part there, man. I think he gets a little undersold. I mean, because Shawn Michaels was Shawn Michaels at that point, kind of crazy. And, and it goes 25 minutes, and you kind of think maybe they went a little long, but I don't think Diesel and King Mabel minded too much.
Yeah.
I think you're like, okay, keep on going, guys. We're not going to need that much time, so just keep doing your thing. And I felt bad for Shawn, though, especially at the end, where they finally he's going to grab the belt and fall down to the mat, and the belt no-sells him.
Yeah, just completely no-sells it.
Oh, Shawn, he was not happy about that either. You could tell.
Well, Shawn probably wasn't happy about a lot of things during this era, but
no, he was not.
That didn't help.
He was mostly happy with the match, though. Other than that little part there, and they shake hands and whatnot afterwards, and yeah, it's kind of interesting to think what could have happened. And Razor Ramon, I know back in the day, I was a big Razor fan, and he was perennial Intercontinental champion. And it's a shame he never quite got up to that next level. The only time I remember him being a world title contender was back in 93 with Bret Hart. I think a couple of years later, you could see him as a world title contender. Yeah. And if we take a look at the main event scene here, I think had the face-heel alignments been a little bit different, I think Razor and Diesel could have had a nice little run together. And then maybe that's how you get Hall and Nash to stick around and have them work together.
Well, I think he's easily, you're putting Razor in that list. If you say the top, I don't know, we could probably spend an hour on this, but if you do the top 5 guys that never won the WWF Championship, he's probably in that category, right? I think you probably put Jake in there.
Yeah, Jake.
DiBiase, maybe.
Yep.
Those are, again, there's probably many more.
Yeah, Mr. Perfect.
Mr. Perfect.
Rick Rude. You can name a bunch of guys from Hogan's era. I mean, Piper, obviously.
Piper, Owen Hart, even probably down the line. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, but I think that's always one that's going to stand out. I think when you look at Razor and you're thinking, because you see a match like this and you're just like, my goodness, this guy, he did like he had it all
He
except
had the
for
size too. He had the size. He
you
had the
know.
look.
I mean, hey, it's just this guy just he had it, and this was fantastic. Of course, as we said, if you're going to go back and watch anything on the show, this is probably the one thing worth watching.
Yeah,
Not
no doubt.
wasting your time. Feel like you're not wasting your time here because even at the amount of time this went, which I think was probably about 25 minutes, I think, more than worth it. Like that, this you should have give this match like 7 more minutes, make the main event 2 minutes, and everyone goes home happy. But it's not how it worked out. So
Well, before that, we also had another interjection by your good friend Dean Douglas.
of course,
Yes, Dean Douglas not a fan of Razor Ramon, and Razor Ramon not a fan of Dean Douglas either. And Dean Douglas catches a beating, and that led to another. That led to a great moment for Shane Douglas's career. That's for sure. Oh, that poor bastard.
boy, what a run here. Yeah, so this is our theme throughout, and Dean Douglas, for all his grading, he gets he gets knocked out by Razor Ramon for this. But perhaps more people were lining up to be knocked out by Razor Ramon, but instead of having to watch the main event, which was Diesel defending the WWF title against King Mabel. This one goes about 10 minutes. 9:14 is the official time I see listed here. Steve, I think it's safe to say when people are making lists like yourself and they want to compile the worst main events in WWF history at any pay-per-view, this is probably always going to land in that on there somewhere. I think it'll differ, but I think for me this is probably always going to land in that category somewhere, just based on I don't even know where you start. But this was the product of 1995. Like everything we've talked about leading up to this point and the issues WWE was having and all that. Like this is your prime example right here. This was your main event for your second biggest show of the year, and we get this.
Yeah, and one of the easiest things to point out is that good old babyface heel divide. You take a look at the matches just below this one. You see Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon, Bret Hart, Undertaker. Not even on the show you have Lex Luger and British Bulldog had just turned heel prior to they turned British Bulldog heel the week before SummerSlam.
So you couldn't have put him here, right?
And they showed British Bulldog showing up backstage, and he did nothing after that.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They just showed him walking around backstage
from the very first match. Hakushi 1-2-3 Kid. They're talking about British Bulldog. I'm like, is there something about to happen here? But then
no, there wasn't
nothing.
He walked around backstage in one little clip, and that was it. There was nothing going on there. Yeah. But the thing is, like I was saying, though, is that all the people that I would think of as legitimate world title contenders for Diesel are good guys. So you're stuck with a whole lot of nothing. I mean, Owen and Yoko weren't even on the show, and they were tag team champions. Yeah. And so you're left with the King of the Ring. I mean, it's just And Mabel, well, it was a bad timing for Diesel on that end. He just said he didn't have anybody good to work with, and the couple months before, he was working with Sid. So you wonder why Nash's title run there gets the flack it did, and I don't think it's all due to him. It's a lot due to his opposition, a lot due to how he was booked. And you could even, I mean, Nash was always best as a tweener anyway. And he had the best run of his career in WWF was like the last few months there, where he was kind of that rebellious, badass heel, but still likable to a lot of people. And they could have run with that, and then you'd have him taking on everybody. Yeah. So anybody besides King Mabel, pretty much. Which this match was a disaster. Although I did notice Diesel early on in the match with he did a tope.
Yes,
like what the hell was that? I'd never seen that in my life, but that's what happened there. And so he was trying, but unfortunately, the match got derailed when Mabel just does a sit down splash on Diesel's back and just breaks the guy in half. And after that, Diesel is basically useless. So I don't know if that led to everything else that happened, which is completely confusing. Mabel tosses referee out of the ring. So Mo runs in and starts helping out Mabel. Then we got Lex Luger coming down, which, makes sense because Luger and the Bulldog had been a team, and they had previously had dissension, But British Bulldog's nowhere to be seen, so I don't know. I'm a little confused.
Right.
And Diesel just clotheslines Luger over the top rope. And Luger, he still helps out and fights Mo to the back. I was confused. I wasn't quite sure what was going on there. And Diesel with the big finish hits a clothesline off the second turnbuckle for a very long 3 count. It was bad. There's really no polishing that thing. It was woof. What was the star rating? What did Meltzer give us? Oh, a half star? Wow, a half star. That's a little high. That must have been for that planche you did.
It must have been. Because I don't think it was for the finish. You talk about just, this thing, it felt like this thing went off the rails, just from the very beginning. And, I mean, this was just, I don't know, the Diesel era was interesting, right? Because that's what everyone always talks about with Diesel was, he's the champion during this era. Here, you look at 95 and we know kind of what's to come because actually, I guess the next pay-per-view, I had to look this up. So the next one is In Your House 3, which that's where Diesel and Shawn team up to take on Owen and Yoko.
Which ends up being Bulldog and Yoko.
Right, which ends up being Bulldog and Yoko.
In which Owen still takes the pin in. So.
Yes.
More great booking from 1995.
By the way, on that one is when Bret's John Pierre Lafitte on that one in Your House 3.
So the jacket thing had happened probably by that point.
I don't anticipate us going back and reviewing this, so just as reference, Sid Vicious pinned Henry Godwin, also on the show. Savio Vega and Waylon Mercy, that's another one. Of course, Dean Douglas, we mentioned earlier, gets a win over Ramon. Yeah, interesting stuff for this era. But, I mean, this is a one-match show. SummerSlam 95 is a one-match show, but unfortunately, you look back and you're like, even as good as that was, I think the one thing that always stands out is just 1995, right? Anytime you associate WWF 1995, you just always think of some of these things that we've talked about. And I think you saw one of the biggest issues was right here on this show in this main event. This was one of the big problems. And like you said, there's no one really lined up for Diesel at this point. You're having to push Mabel straight to the spot, and it just did not work on any level. It was just not good.
And you know what? Even when I was 11 years old, I could have told you, man, this ain't good.
Right. Four-year-old Britt Baker could have told you that, right?
4-year-old Britt Baker could have told us, man, this shit ain't good. This ain't getting over anywhere. Not even Pittsburgh. Not getting over in Pittsburgh. But yeah, just weird stuff going on. It was a weird time period. You could tell if some of the booking with stuff happening just before the show that they're making some changes, which is weird. Another weird thing because they would make these random changes at the last minute, but yet they were content to keep the title on Diesel pretty much all year.
Yeah.
Some stuff they can just flip a coin on, but some other stuff they just stick with forever and ever.
That was it, and that was SummerSlam 1995. So
a 89% thumbs up show according to Wrestling Observer.
Wow, I'm looking at. Let's see, I'm gonna pull up Cage Match here. Cage Match, it's got a 5.15 rating out of 71 votes.
Man, 1995 must have been a rough year for pay-per-views. That's all I can tell you.
Well, I don't anticipate us going back at Royal Rumble season.
11 wasn't too good.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
we're not going back to Royal Rumble 95 whenever we get to the Rumble.
No, that one wasn't too good either.
I will tell you that. So, we're probably not going to be revisiting many 1995 pay-per-views from here on. Just as reference, but we wanted to do this for fun. And next up, Steve, of course, we're going to SummerSlam 2000. That's a little bit better of a show, I think.
Some interesting stuff going on. I recently rewatched that TLC match. That's pretty fresh in my mind. So I won't have to watch as much as you will. So there's that. An interesting main event, too, featuring 3 of the top stars that time period with Rock and Triple H and Kurt Angle. In what I remember being a really good piece of business. And I remember that feud of Triple H and Kurt Angle being a really interesting piece of business that will be interesting to talk about now with 21 years of hindsight.
Well, and if we thought this 95 one had some weird stuff on it, just wait till we get to 2000, because in addition to the stuff Steve mentioned, you've got Jerry Lawler versus Taz. That's another one in 2000. Yes. That's interesting. And then you've also got the Cat and Terry in a stink face match. So
A main event anywhere in the country.
What a time in the world of wrestling, both in 95 and 2000. A little bit better for WWE business-wise in 2000. But that was SummerSlam 95.
And you know what? And I'll say, and even though I have commented in many places on how sick I am of ladder matches right now because NXT just ran the concept into the ground for me. I'm completely done with ladder matches.
They're not going to have many more now, so.
Well, yeah, there you go. But I will say that that match, after how many years, it still holds up really well.
Yeah.
And it's still to me one of the better ladder matches due to the psychology they use and whatnot. I thought was a step ahead of a lot of stuff I've seen where it's just guys taking bumps off ladders.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It definitely holds up. So that is our recommendation. Go back, check that one out here on SummerSlam 95. Definitely worth your time there. Of course, everything else we'll have, again, we said we got SummerSlam 2000 coming up here soon on the podcast and other podcasts, of course, on any other big happenings in the world of professional wrestling. And for everything else, check out 41mania.com. All of our news, columns, reviews, everything's over there. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Just search for 411 on Wrestling, any podcast app you use. And as always, we have the link to the GoFundMe for Larry Zonka's family in the show notes. So be sure to continue to share and contribute if you can. Everything else, 411mania.com. So thanks as always for listening, and we'll talk to you next time here on 411 on Wrestling Podcast.